Pretty much, more or less. Ready? Park? All right. So, thank you for coming. Those who haven't been here before, this is QASIG. This is our 14th year, beginning of 14th year of doing this, and this is the Corda building. And if anybody's interested in anything about that, let me know. We have three wonderful things to be thankful for tonight. Obviously, this beautiful day that we have, this wonderful weather. Hopefully, it's returning for a stretch. Have a nice spring. The other is that we have running water for the past for the past 5 days. We had a main sewer line, or not sewer line, but water main break, and we haven't had any water in this building. But fortunately, since we're all here having pizza and beer, we do have running water. So I'm glad for that. And then the other that we all can be very thankful for is I had full intentions of wearing this tonight, but I couldn't find the cape and cowl. I had this as a Halloween costume several years ago, and my son was 4 and he had one too. But I was going to come out here and introduce Zephan and that, but you can all thank your lucky stars that didn't. So tonight's presenter is a regular attendee at the QASIG and a friend of the community. He's currently at Philips Healthcare and has spent over 15 years at Microsoft. He knows his stuff. Please welcome Zephan.
So we're here to talk about test tools. And if you thought I was going to give you the answer of what the best test tools were, that's subjective and it depends on the situation. It depends is a great answer to give to any question like that. But we will actually be compiling a bunch of test tools and coming up with some ideas both for what is cool and relevant right now for this audience, your peers, and people that know more or less about various areas. We'll also take a look at some things that are more important than tools in terms of how to find, organize, and when to use and when not to use tools. So we'll dig into stuff. It's going to be fun. So without further ado, let's hop into a presentation. Hey, it's a tool. All right, so testing like Batman. My name is Zephan Schroeder. I will be your guide, but you guys get to do some work together. Software test tools. First thing we got to start with is what are software test tools? What's your guys' definition? I've got one. I'm not particularly sure it's the right one, but anybody have a fathom of what you consider to be a testing tool? No clue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to define a test, it has to run a test, and it has to validate a test.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
I'd say it's anything that's going to help me test better. So it doesn't have to be an actual test running tool, right? If it's some other kind of third-party tool, it works for me, you know?
I like that
It can
too.
be direct.
You want to use the right tool for the job.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like there's a variety of tools. That,
Yeah, it's the test tool is one where a human cannot test, but it replaces the tool.
A tool allows you to get to things or to find out information that you wouldn't be able to do on your own.
Oh,
Okay, another excellent aspect of a test tool. So here's my rough stab at it. So these are software applications used to help analyze and determine the quality of other software applications or solutions, or whatever the heck you want it to mean. It can be very, very general. So rather than just listing off every piece of software in the world, let's provide at least a little bit of a constraint. What is not a tool? At least for this discussion, I want to avoid test methodologies, approaches, strategies. These are abstract things. So anything that is implementation agnostic is off the list for today. We can put it on the list tomorrow, because I find a lot of those things very useful in guiding where you're going to test or what it is you're going to test, but not necessarily software that's going to assist you. And there are also things that might be test tools. Checklist? Well, code review checklist does a really good job of implementing or helping to enforce software quality. I find that useful. Is it a tool? Probably, you might be able to convince me not, but it depends on the day. Pair programming? Okay, the tool is your colleague's brain. You can't really install it and run it, but maybe it's a tool. It's kind of a cross, it's almost the methodology, but it's a specific, actionable process that leads to discovering things that you wouldn't have seen on your own. So it's kind of a tool. All right, without further ado, there's a whole bunch of stickies right there on the pool table. More importantly, there's also pens. There should be at least 2 pens per person, so you can fill out 2 stickies at the same time. I'd like everybody to grab and pass along some stickies and some pens. You can use the really big pens and really big stickies in the center if you are so inclined. I don't care.
Sure.
So as we're getting all stickied up here, the intent here is to write down some tools that you find useful in testing, or if you don't do testing, write down some tools that you think testers would use or would find useful based on our previous mini discussion on.
One per sticky or a list per sticky?
1 per sticky. If you like the tool a whole lot, you can put a little star in the bottom left corner to indicate it's one of your 5 favorites. You get 5 stars. Don't use them all up, because a little later on, we're going to have a chance to look at other people's stickies and use some of those stars. If you happen to run out of stars, you're going to have to go track back and cross out one of your earlier stars. It may work, it may not. That's one of the fun things about stickies. Other than that, go ahead and take some time right now, write down a couple of your favorite test tools, and just start coming up with a little list. I'm going to give us about 5 minutes or so. If anybody has questions, feel free to just jump in right now or at any point in the conversation. But we are going to need those tools, so start writing them down. Otherwise, we're going to be bored for the next 4 minutes.
What about in-house tools? Nobody else would do.
Sure. Yeah. If it's proprietary,
Right.
then just put, in-house tool that does such and such, or something generic so you don't get in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
You got to remember this is recorded for posterity and for people that can't be here physically. So if you're putting out trade secrets, probably not so good.
Oh, right. Of course. IP leaks.
Also, if anybody's online right now, you can go ahead and put in comments. We've got somebody that can help relay those and put them on sticky notes. Virtual sticky writer. It's kind of like a printer. Pay no attention to the screen for the next 2 minutes. People that aren't already here. If you've come in late, welcome to the test tool testing like Batman session. Grab some stickies and a pen and start writing down tools, 1 tool per sticky. Things that you use to help test, things that you couldn't test without. Ask questions anytime. Bring on my little writing
It's annoying.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have this all perfected.
No, no, no.
Oh, no,
We're
the
talking
tools
about
annoying.
Oh yeah, the tool that you can't live without, but it's dang annoying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want those tools as well. We can have great discussions. And this is kind of a launching pad to have those discussions as well, so I'm looking forward to that part. So now that I've demonstrated this nifty little timer tool, and we're getting close to 45 seconds, keep writing, we need more tools. But in the meantime, you don't have more tools. You can spend all day writing about tools. At least I could. So in the meantime, while you guys keep writing down at any point in time more tools until you run out of stickies or space to put them on your body, waiting for me to ask for them, I wanted to give a really quick illustration of too many tools. So I wanted to actually make a mind map of software testing tools for this presentation. Well, I don't use mind mapping software very often. So I figured, okay, I gotta look up mind mapping tools. I wanted to be able to post it online, make it collaborative, that sort of thing. So the first thing I tried was do a Google search, all right? Find mind mapping online, something that has this mind mapping online. I had probably 160,000 hits, so that sounds like a lot of work to figure out which one of those things gave me the right answer. So I was hoping the top hit would be the most likely, which led me to this nice article that Mashable had posted about the 24 essential mind mapping and brainstorming tools. Wow. Okay, this sounded exciting, and I wanted to know about mind mapping tools. So okay, I go there. I start reading through. In fact, let's take a look at what that looks like, because I found it fascinating. Good, my internet is actually working as a tool. Slowly, but that's probably on my laptop. And as you can see, here's MindMeister, and it talks about stuff in nice prose. You can collect stuff, discuss. Oh, look, you can do live chat, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, that might be it. iMindMap, developed by blah, blah, blah. Freehand, okay. Let iMindMap create a whole. I don't see anything about tons of collaboration. Oh, and it costs money. No, next. SpiderScribe. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, Pro, $5. Okay, at least there's a free account. Public maps. Okay, so you can create a private or public map, collaborate with it. Okay, so this might be one. Xmind. Okay, useful open source, blah, blah. Okay, lots of different file formats and line structure. Logic Fishbone charts, it does more. It doesn't say anything about online posting and collaborations. And free, up to 70, okay, it has free, so that might be good. 5, Cobble. 6, FreeMind, text to mind map. About the time I got to, 22, Mind App, my mind was like, oh, great, I've just spent an hour learning about mind map features, functionality, and this isn't really helping me narrow the field. So, scratch that approach. Let's try number 2. There is a very, very cool list of tools for developers and power users that Scott Hanselman puts out. Anybody seen this particular tool list? Scott Hanselman's developer tools? Oh God, I've just doubled your productivity just this instant. Go check it out. It's really, really cool. So, we gotta go there right now. Zephan said something about Scott Hanselman tools. Actually, he just said something about Hanselman tools. Oh, Scott Hanselman's 2011 and Scott Hanselman's tool list. Huh. Okay, www.hanselman.com/tools. Scott Hanselman, by the way, is a fantastic speaker, great, lots of energy. He, for over 10 years, has been putting together these ultimate tool lists, basically curating a list of the stuff that he's found to be the coolest. He's a tool aficionado, makes me look like, you know, somebody playing around in the Lincoln Log block. So it's not specific to testing, but boy, just about everything that's cool can be used for testing. So if you need to copy a lot of stuff, Terracopy might be a great thing, and he's got a link to it. And he's 7-zip, so if you needed compression. Oh, this particular one is really nice, and it kind of won the war, so you can kind of get an idea of what is not only a tool that's useful in this particular category, but one that's kind of risen above and is recent and relevant. It's not a tool that was great 7 years ago, but now it's languishing and doesn't work with Windows 7 or Windows 8 or whatever. Dropbox, so you've got Windows 8 store apps, LinkPad, there's a useful one, particularly for developers. Fiddler, Reshaper, a lot of stuff that I use. WinMerge, Beyond Compare, Nearsoft, bug shooting, MS Code shell extension. So there's all sorts of categories. PostSharp, which is really good for development. StyleCop, again, for your more developer stuff. Stuff I just dig. Carnegie Torrent Explorer too. So check out this list of tools and just read through it once. It's entertaining to read. More importantly, you may say, oh my God, I wish I'd known about that tool about 3 years ago, and start using it. All right, enough of that segue. I didn't find anything in his current tool list for mind mapping, but I did remember seeing one a little while ago. So I looked at his 2011 mind map tool, and he mentioned Xmind. So I went and looked at Xmind, and the description is actually a lot better online than what was on that 24 Essential Tools. It actually does allow posting for online collaboration very easily. It turns out that I started searching the xmind.net library of mind maps that have been posted, and I found some by Adam Urich, who I just watched last week do a QA-related talk. Methodology stuff, but still very cool. It's currently used by folks that I care about, so I'll go with it. And that process here took me about 7 minutes to pick out a tool that looked really good, and so far I've been quite happy with. So, as you can see, filtering is a really, really important point that I want to get to. If there's too many tools, so how do we filter things down? Tool reviews are good. You can find stuff like Editor's Choice or something on PC Magazine or Better Software, Software Testing Club. Maybe another place that you can find a review of a tool that's individual. It's sort of hit and miss, but it's one way of filtering things out. Keep in mind you want to zoom things in. Finding a curated list like Hanselman's tool list is really, really useful. Another list that I've found quite useful is on Wikipedia. If you go to Wikipedia and search for test tools, you won't find an exact hit, but you will hit test automation, which will, and let's just look at test automation here. Actually, test management tools. I've already got that one up. So test management tools. Okay, it gives you a little about, which I'd expect. And then you can actually get into, oh look, HP Quality Center, IBM Rational Quality Manager, testing, and what features it has. Anybody seen these on Wikipedia? No? Hands? Yes, okay, at least a couple of people have, good. And the other people are either asleep or this is really, really useful stuff. Hopefully the latter. So these are really great for being able to look at, okay, does this have the feature that I want or that I need, I can't live without? Also when it was produced. And this stuff tends to be relatively up to date. There's nothing for software testing tools as a whole general thing, but for a particular category, like GUI testing tools, you can find all sorts of stuff. HP Windrunner, here's kind of what was about that. This one's kind of a lame list, but as you can see, if you poke around on Wikipedia, you may find the playing field quite quickly. These are hard to keep current, so this isn't a perfect solution, but this gives you a tool to help find the tools that you need. And that's one of the tools I wanted to make sure that I shared. Community voting is another important thing because, like I said, you can't tell from those wiki lists which tool is popular, which one's gone out of style, which one has a broad adoption. You need some sort of user voting mechanism in there. Wikipedia doesn't have that. I can't like and favorite those in a way that I've found yet. If anybody knows of a way that does allow voting or liking or favoriting or counting,
How about it like a discussion group? Are there any of those
Just
online?
there are some.
Just edit the article and see if it sticks. Any
It
sort
would
of
need to be a
bias
feature that
against
people would
any-
find discoverable. And it's also not factual information, it's opinion information.
True.
And everybody would have to do it as a community, so the process would have to be unified. Good idea, though. I thought of a way of maybe mashing a site that has user IDs that are very, very common, Facebook or Google Plus or OpenID in general. Use your account, or Discuss might be another one, and have it mashed with Wikipedia articles to be able to say, oh, this tool, I vote for that, and these are my top 5, and I could look up, hey, who's this person's top 5 test tools today? And something that you could easily manage. That would be awesome. Then I wouldn't have to speak about test tools because it would be easier to discover and use these darn things. Codeplex is an example of a place that does have voting. The bad side to that is Codeplex just has Codeplex tools, so you can only vote on the tools that are hosted on Codeplex. So there is some of this, but the tool environment itself is fragmented, and that's just the world we live in. So hopefully this is giving you some tools to find those places. Categorization is another area to help you narrow in. There's so many software testing tools. How about GUI software testing tools? Or I want UI automation testing tools. Finding out what these categories are and know what the name of it is, like mind mapping. You do that, all of a sudden you can find those 24 tools that might have helped you with making this funny looking thing with a center and little spokes that go off really fast and easy. So we'll do a little bit of informal categories, but there's some drawbacks to this. I haven't found a perfect list of categories for software testing tools, and a lot of them overlap. The same tool can go in 3 categories or doesn't fit in any category other than its own. So this is a quick look at a software test tools map that I made in the last 24 hours. Yeah, it's kind of hard to pick out the information in there, but I've got information itself. Kind of start with that. Where are you testing? What's your test space? What is it that you're going to be testing? If you don't know about that, picking your tools is going to be a shot in the dark. So understand what situation you're going into. Is it an API layer? Yeah.
And I'm actually a business analyst, so I came to learn a little about testing because I do scenarios.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And I get the testers involved early. So I'm trying to figure out what I should be doing so they can consume them. And so if you could sort of mention where scenarios fit
Scenarios.
at any point
Excellent.
in your
Excellent.
presentation.
Yeah, so scenarios is sort of a test approach, I think. How your tools that you would use to document scenarios is where I would get in this particular speech. So I think I'm going to miss what tools would be good for scenarios in here. But it's a great segue point. I think one of the things that is also a borderline tool, but it's an approach, is usability studies. I was going to do sort of an informal usability study by having a camera out at the audience while I did this speech. And then at the end, well, with everybody's permission, of course, at the end, I was going to look at that and say, okay, at what points was my speech really engaging and I had shining eyes? And at what point were people, texting or nodding off or going to get another piece of pizza or beer? Beer does make the the presentation better, by the way, so if you think my presentation sucks, take a break right now, grab some more beer. Seriously, it's fine. It's all good. All right, so yeah, these are some categories: automation, text tool. Performance is one that kind of hits down below, but performance can deal with web automation or UI automation and so forth. And so performance tools, I tend to put in what performance they're actually testing: OS performance or network performance or whatever other category. And that's just my view of it. There's lots of different ways to view this stuff. By the way, over a little bit of time, oops, I made that a clickable thing. That wasn't my intent. I've added a few more tools to this. I will give you guys the link to the latest one of these mind maps. But there's a lot of tools and a lot of categories, and this could be, this is just a few tools in each category. It's really not exhaustive, and it can't be. But it's to help illustrate, and it's the process of saying, hey, what is out there that I find very, very interesting. All right, well, we'll take a little bit deeper look at this in a little bit, but I want to kind of recreate one of these. So it's sort of categorizing and voting time. All of those stickies that you've been carefully writing out and saving for me because I asked you earlier. Let's go ahead and start putting out some rough categories, and from there, we're going to start putting up these tools. So I need ideas for categories, stuff that you guys can think of in terms of the tools that you wrote down, perhaps web automation or automation in general. I need something. Start telling me what to write here, folks. This is your turn.
Can we start with tools and then kind of categorize them later as simple
tools? All right. Okay. What kind of tools do you have?
I got a network scanner.
Oh yeah, network. If you have any network tools, feel free to put them right over here. All right. Go ahead. What other types of tools?
Compare tools?
Comparison tools?
Yes.
Cool. Now, the really tricky part about this is how am I getting these all to fit in there? This has not been heavily scripted, if you couldn't tell. So if you have some tools that you want to start putting in these categories, go ahead and do so at any time. What other categories do we have?
Test running tools? Like test running tools?
Test runners.
Test runners. And I don't know if you put framework in the same category, but.
Yeah, I actually got to that same
Unit test frameworks or.
test runners / and I'm going to use the term framework loosely. Good. Test runners are right here. What other types?
Test code development.
Test code development? All right, test coding. Any tools that deal with test coding in any way, shape, or form, go right here. Excellent. Oops. Let's see if I can do something disastrous in my spare cycle here.
Would you consider scripting languages in that category?
I would. I think scripts are a first level customer. So
How about logging and log parsers?
logging, log parsers, sure. Logging and log analysis. I love it. Mainly, it was one of the ones that I thought of too. Excellent.
Test or test case management.
Test case management, excellent. This is awesome. It's actually working. People have stickies and they have a place to put them.
Can we have a generic category for like web tools?
Sure, we can have tools. Sorry. Totally cool with that. Sticky. Tools. This is great. You guys can move around. All the people won't settle and they can fall asleep. All right, I'm going to make people move around more. Web tools. Over here, in this corner, we have web tools. Yay. Fantastic. What other categories of tools do we have? Sticky sports. Mobile. Mobile. Nice.
Can I say DUT? Like hardware?
Hardware.
Yeah, that's a tool I need.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Do you have any specific on that? So.
Well, a mobile devices,
Okay.
certain consoles.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you can use VM for console.
Yeah. Mobile.
You don't have performance testing.
Performance testing?
Yeah, I mean, or like load testing, performance testing, stress.
So are you load testing a website?
Yeah.
It's a web tool.
Okay, it's all the web tools.
It's what we were doing performance testing of. Although I've run into that conundrum before. That's my current solution to it.
All right, so
Data tools,
Ooh, data tools. Awesome.
data database, I don't know if that's a separate category or.
Mobile tools on my stick. I'm going to stick mobile tools right here. Actually, no, I'm not going to stick it right now. What I don't want to do is get everybody stuck in the same spot. So mobile tools are right here. Please don't disconnect me from the world or make my presentation better. All right, we've got hardware platform / mobile over here. What other
Collaboration tool.
collaboration? I love that one. I have a story about it if we have time. Guys are going along, take a look at what other people have been putting up here, because you may say, oh, there's a collaboration tool I use all the time for organizing testing. That's my favorite thing to use. I use Skype all the time because I have to deal with testers in India. Or in my case, I use Link. So that would be one of my tools, and I might even put a little star on it, dedicated to one of my favorites.
U-test.
U-test. Ooh, U-test. So this is, test services.
So like
It's-
a
you're
focus
stretching
group
my
would go in
definition,
with
but
that,
I'll take
right?
it.
Would a focus group go in there? Or no? It's not a net negative.
No. Test services, this one might need to be broken out. You guys are making me think out of my box. Test. Oops. All right, so that's my current solution. You'll see how, whether it stands the test of time. All
What
right.
about code analysis tools? Code analysis.
Code analysis. Now we're
Did you
doing
say
the developer
data, or
tools?
did you say data analysis?
Oh, data tools.
I think
Data
that's the
tools.
same
I need
thing.
that. I need that.
I mean, it's a form of.
Just like in that corner, right side, or somewhere that looks like a small. data tools. So this one is more of an approach. So we're going to leave that off. Debuggers would be probably test coding. And server, okay, so this is a test environment related tool. So test environments. Yeah, we can put it on device. Sure. I'll just sort of tweak that particular tool category.
Think about process monitor, process explorer.
Oh, thank you. I love those things.
They're really great tools. I use them all the time, but I don't know if they're really testing tools. I mean, I use them.
So
Testing stuff.
I use them all the time when I'm looking for runaway or memory leaks over time, or where I've got CPU spikes. Oh, okay, watching the main pipes. There's lots of uses for those. I tend to think of those as OS level tools. Yeah. Wow. Also, put that under mobile or.
Also, I kind of just put MS Paint. I don't know.
Sure.
I was kind of thinking of my bug writing tools or.
Yeah, I like that.
Tracking, bug writing.
Do I already have a category for those? If not, I'm right.
Bug system. They're kind of like test management.
Yeah, you have test case management. I don't know, they could.
No. Actually, test case management and yeah, it's related. Bug capture.
Yeah, bug capture.
It's kind of funny, like, how's that sort of lower the collaboration?
You can have tools that bridge very easily, and this one is all right. I'll need to look into that. Oh, bug tracking system?
Yeah.
That actually no bugs.
Oh, no, it's not a recording. Sorry, I was thinking bug tracking. Sorry.
Bug tracking. Do I
Figure
have?
bug system, you know.
Yeah, defect tracking.
So much stuff here.
Test case management. Yeah, so test case management kind of breaks down into.
What you got left over?
Something called
You guys all got specific and I don't know.
Well, most of mine are specific, but this is the one.
Test coding, if you're doing coding, the automation, what is it you're automating? Okay. So, Selenium would be web tools, web-based automation. Yes, you got me on that. So you got a category of tools that automation. So we're I hate to write automation because it does fit into so many different areas that you can put your sticky in automation and in web, or automation and in GUI or UI. And maybe UI testing. Did anyone say Notepad?
I put Notepad on there.
I have Notepad++.
I know, I use it.
I use it for a variety of things, including text comparison. Notepad++ has a neat little text compare feature in it, and a bunch of other things that people don't know about.
I didn't know that. How to show that?
All right, maybe I will. Let's see what we got time for. Okay, so text editors. I'm trying to make sure that everybody has a place to put their stickies. So if you still have stickies that don't fit in any of these categories, Wait a minute, so there was comparison. Yeah, there's comparisons over there. Yeah, so let's do comparison slash editing. There, now there's a place for Notepad++. Good. I got my sticky on.
See, you just use it.
Yeah, let's see here.
These are great.
Ooh, flowcharts. Flowcharts is probably a collaboration tool.
That's for knowing how well you're doing, you know, how long it takes to do tests, how much you have to cover.
Yeah.
You know, how, you know, are you gonna actually get the job done?
Yeah.
Kind of stuff, so, you know, how long does it take to do?
I would probably put it under logging or log analysis. You're actually producing the log, and
this is more for analyzing maybe extended time.
yeah.
Or what bugs are in there.
Yeah, and a lot of these are not specific tools. They're categories. There's nothing that you can use.
I'm not a tester.
Color palettes. You did bring up a very good point. Test files or file-related tools. I don't know if anybody could put anything into this one. I have a couple of ideas that I have.
Documents is actually how to generate the output tests.
All right.
Do you have a category that you can stick Google or Bing into? I mean, because looking stuff up on the web is
Yeah,
pretty...
that's like a definitely.
Yeah. Test info.
Slash resources maybe.
Yeah, you kind of need a Venn diagram for all these or something.
Remember that really big mind map? There's a stab at this, but it was just my thoughts. It's not the collaborative community, which is a big reason why I'm here right now. That and this whole topic has been bugging me long enough to actually do some stuff. Well, if you're just on Ustream, this is really hard to walk over and put stickies on, so I'm sorry that you're watching this saying, oh, but I gotta put this tool here. All right. How are we doing? Anybody still have stickies that they feel need to go somewhere? If not, or if so, you can put it in the other pile.
Did you put it in foundations for bug tracking or collaboration?
You can put it in bug count, you can put it in bug tracking, test case management, repository. I happen to be a TFS administrator, so I put it all over the place.
Okay, I put it in test case management.
That's cool. You can make another sticky with the same thing and put it somewhere else that you use it. That's probably what I'll have to do offline.
Make that.
The rest of my cards underneath the, oh yeah, flowchart, there you go. I have other. And that just means that I will have the task after this meeting to find where those others should actually fit in, but you're more than welcome to throw your remaining stickies in the other bucket. I'm just glad we saved that so long that you guys had a chance at putting these things into different categories. Otherwise, I'd be doomed, and I probably wouldn't do anything with the info. So I will actually take all of these after this meeting and put them together, refine my existing mind map, and I'll post it up. If you go to xmind, www.xmind.net, I've got the links at the end of the presentation. And take a look for my posted mind maps. You'll find the current version of this, and then you'll find the new one with all of this stuff soaked into it. And you may be illustrating. One thing that I see we didn't get a lot of was putting a little star by your top 5 favorites. It's okay. The fact that we got stickies and we got categories meets my bar for being a successful presentation. So I'm going to move on. Feel free after the meeting to put little dashes for things that you actually use and stars for things that are your top 5 favorites. Oh, I don't want to sit on test files. I'll put test files over here. And let's go on to the more important thing. Test mindsets. So all of these tools are great. You can't possibly use all of them. You can't possibly know all of them in enough depth to use them effectively. So it's the process of cherry picking, which we talked about, getting the right tools, and then how to go about and when to go about using these tools. So how you approach the situation is really going to make the difference as to whether any of these tools is going to do what you need, or whether you're just going to fling the tool, or somebody's going to say you're a terrible tester because you didn't know how to use the tool right, or it wasn't the right fit. So let's consider some examples of test mindsets. My first and favorite. Everybody know who this is? Inspector Gadget. All right, now that that theme is stuck in your heads, let's think a little bit about how Inspector Gadget uses tools. First of all, it's pretty easy for him. He just has to say go, go, gadget, and whatever he wants. And it pops out of his hat or finger or arm. Go, go, gadget, telescoping neck, go, go, gadget, skis, whatever. But his mindset is completely haphazard. He's lucky he hasn't killed himself, let alone people around him. And it's only through sheer dumb luck that the tools manage to keep him alive, let alone solve anything. At least the exemplified caricature of Inspector Gadget. And I know there are testers out there like that as well. This tool is great. It's the whatnot tool. It will do the right thing for me. Or I need this tool, and this tool. Or I need these 5 tools, but without knowing how to use them or when to use them, it's shooting in the dark. So that's the Inspector Gadget mindset. If I see somebody pop a helicopter out of the top of their head, I'm going to think, you might not be thinking ahead. RoboCop. Here's one badass tester. His tools are deeply integrated with the way he works and the way he thinks. It's a rigid tool set. He's got the tools that he's got, and that's it. He doesn't have a rocket launcher. He's got a pistol built into his leg. Okay, great. If he needs a rocket launcher, or if he needs some other tool of some sort that's not built into his rigid test equipment, or his rigid equipment, he has to go way out of his way. In fact, the moral of RoboCop, the movie, is the software and the tooling is controlling what RoboCop is able to do. He has to work really hard to get outside of that exoskeleton that he's got hooked up to him in order to be able to do things. And some tool sets are very, very heavy-handed in what you can and cannot do. If you religiously follow the Microsoft test stack, and you use Microsoft Test Manager and all of their test plans and test automation software, you will find that you can do half measures very well. As soon as you try and do everything with just that tool, you paint yourself into a pretty tight corner where the tool just doesn't work right, and if you're trying to force things to work with a tool that doesn't really cover that well, you're stuck being RoboCop. You can do it, but it takes a lot more effort, and you're fighting the system that's supposed to help you. So that's another mindset, and it's a real-world testing problem when there's a religious adherence to just use this tool or these tools, and that's all you got. All right. I was thinking about also talking about Chuck Norris, but he can He can solve any software problem by giving it a roundhouse kick, emphasize if I mention him in a presentation that's public. You might give me a roundhouse kick. Superman also, but unfortunately Superman is born on another planet, very limited tool set. So we'll get to Batman. MacGyver.
I was in
That's actually pretty good. No expected tool set, just raw thinking involved. So that's a pretty good one.
And he makes tools out of what he has.
That's right. Paper clips, chewing gum, duct tape,
my kind of guy.
bubble gum.
Kind of like red green.
Yes. Testing like red green.
Like to see them do an episode.
I'll have to think about adding those. All right, so Batman's mindset is a lot of intellectual work. Before he runs into a situation, he's analyzing things way ahead of time. He's working hard to be ahead of the curve. It doesn't look like it, but he's preparing and anticipating what situation is going to come about, and he's selecting his tools to match up ahead of time. He's got the right tool at the right time. Another aspect is he's very agile in his approach. He will use the tools that he has available, or he will adapt to what's the changing situation. So if there's something at hand that will work, whether it's dust or he's got a grappling hook and he needs to follow somebody, okay, fine, he shoots the grappling hook at the bumper and follows along, or whatever. So think of creative uses of the same tool to do something it wasn't initially designed to do, as well as using other things that are not traditionally considered tools. Very open-minded, very flexible and adaptive in his mindset. Anything's a tool if you look at it the right way. I like that. He does some early practice before the tool is needed. You don't see this on screen, but you better believe he didn't throw the batarang perfect the first time, and he didn't make that grappling hook actually catch the first time. There's a lot of practicing and getting comfortable with the tool ahead of time, preferably when nobody was looking. Finding low-risk parts of a product cycle to test out and prove out a new tool, really smart. The stakes are not high. If it doesn't work out the way you planned, there's not a lot at stake, and you're not going to get yourself in trouble for making that risk-based investment in your tool set, in your tool belt. And finally, he researches reliable tools. He needs to rely on his tools. He's going to pick out the things that work the best for him. If there is nothing out there that fits what he knows he's going to need, he'll develop a tool in-house, so to speak. This I wanted to mention. It's a little bit of a Batman stretch because he makes all of his tools. Let's admit it. I'm stretching. But there's always a buy versus build in the software world. If you're going for a software test tool and you decide to make your own, you have to maintain your own. And for tools, they don't add any direct benefit to the customer. So this is overhead that you're taking initially and ongoing until that tool is sunsetted. So if you can find somebody else that's had the bright idea and the expertise to keep it maintained, it's probably worth buying that. Just throwing it out there.
Some people, like Microsoft used to have maybe they still do, I don't know, it's been a long time ago for me.
Yeah.
Kind of the eat your own dog food type.
Eat your own dog food and only Microsoft software, only in-house sort of thing. And that mindset, I think, cost Microsoft a lot in terms of making all of these duplicate things and being distracted.
Yeah,
frankly.
Amazon does the same thing.
Well, and Amazon may be in a place where they've actually led a new category where there probably wasn't a lot of tools available to do that. Now they may be at a point now. I know they was it LinkedIn or I think it was LinkedIn that originally made Glue, GLU. It's a deployment framework for taking a build and deploying to n number of servers and then making sure n number of servers have the correct version, and they could do rolling rollouts and rolling rollbacks, and if one of the servers caught fire and blew up, Glue would say, oh, no, I need another one of that type of server. I will go ahead and deploy everything needed to a new server, provision it, and then bring it online into the farm. So it was basically farm management. Don't quote me, but I think it was LinkedIn originally had developed that as an in-house tool. and decided to spin it off as an open source project because they didn't want to do the overhead maintenance for it going on. They wanted the community to support it and to be able to leverage a tool that wasn't their core competence.
So maybe adding an unexpected tool, because when Microsoft's just using Microsoft software, they're assuming that no one else is going to use any other tools, and that's a pretty erroneous.
It's a narrow mindset.
Well, yeah, but there's a lot of bugs that they're going to miss.
Yeah.
So if you have an attacker that's going to try to break into your network, they're going to have lots of tools that you aren't considering, and so you can't make that assumption.
The other reason I'm here is I was in a position where they had just gotten a new master ALM tool, and I was told we were going to use it.
Yep.
And it didn't do what we needed, but, so we did our own tools to support what we needed. The question I have for you is, there's an interesting article in Time magazine about what went wrong with Obamacare.
Okay.
Obamacare is a classic example of what I'm talking about. You've got a software system that at its heart has a very simple scenario. Sort of. Let's just take a high level picture. Sign up a new account holder. But, and I didn't know how this fit in a category, there's a million rules and constraints.
Right.
So is a rules engine considered a category or a decision model, or how does that relate to all the testing tools?
Some specific decision modeling tool, perhaps Excel with a what-if analysis. Now, granted, for that particular scale problem, that would have been
that's what we would
a tool. The tool would have been an in-house developed thing, also for performance forecasting. Hey, how can I simulate the load of the entire United States hitting this thing and make sure that my network pipes, as well as my initial servers, my routing. I haven't looked at the failure analysis for the healthcare.gov, that's what I think you're pointing at, implementation to sign people up for the Affordable Care Act. It's a fascinating study, though. I've heard some bits and pieces about it. But there's an area where the scale was so big and the approach was sort of waterfall down, and they didn't really do any iterative testing in between. I know that was one of the findings of the postmortem after the thing was on the floor dead.
Right.
So finding specific tools to identify, and again, where that led to was information. The first tool, know what your product is, know what your user scenarios are, understand those, and then your second thing you're doing is looking at tool repositories to see what's available to meet your anticipated needs.
I think that's key what you're saying, because so often you see companies that buy what they think is a silver bullet.
Yep.
And they think that all they need to do is buy this tool, and the tool will become their process. It's
Microsoft is starting to flow the Kool-Aid on that pretty heavily with TFS.
Yeah, but I mean, it's everywhere in business. And it's always been my opinion, you gotta figure out what your process is, and you figure out how do I get a tool that can actually accomplish this.
What tools can best accommodate the process that I believe will work for me? And part of that, if you're getting into an ALM tool, is to ask yourself and say, my process is iterative. It is not static. It's not going to be static unless it's just not going to. Don't assume anything about static process. How well is this ALM tool going to be able to be adapted to meet my changing process needs? And I found TFS to
You
be
might
fairly
have
effective.
just answered my question, is what we ended up doing, the tools that work for me is the ones that everybody can update. So I ended up using my own little tools and then exporting Excel spreadsheets and checking them into TFS.
Okay.
So I guess to answer my own question, you could potentially have your master repository of information that links to different projects in TFS.
You could.
Because then when it updates, you want it to be spread across all the different things it impacts.
Yeah, if you're looking at project management and planning and stuff, the requirements work items in TFS I've found to be okay.
No, I'm talking about testing. I'm talking about,
Okay.
I'm signing up for Obamacare, and you can only sign up if you're 18 or older. So you've got all these constraints.
Yeah, so if you've got a test
in
tool
TFS,
that's
and then
consuming the constraints.
Right, and then they change the rule, and they say, oh, we changed our mind, you have to be 21. So you make one change in TFS, you've got an audit trail, and then it gets
Yeah,
populated.
if you need an audit trail, TFS is wonderful. I mean, they actually enforce audit trail. You can't go back in time unless you're the administrator and you literally obliterate something completely
Right.
off. You cannot tweak the timestamps.
Okay,
So-
that really helps, thank you.
So, the last thing in Batman's mindset is his most powerful tool. It's not the Batarang, it's not the Batmobile, it's not his utility belt, it's his mind, his dedication. He's just extremely passionate and focused about what it is he needs to achieve. The means will be whatever is available at the time, but he's very, very clear about what he needs to achieve, and he keeps that level of intense focus and that persistence. Those three things right there, I think, are key attributes that any tester can be successful with, regardless of whether they have their tool belt handy or they have to go MacGyver. So in conclusion, know your problem space and what's relevant, what relevant tools might help you. Find and select the tools to meet your needs. Don't limit your time. Don't limit your testing to the tool limitations, TFS being one example. James Bach likes to, and Kim Kainer talk about the concept of half measures. Don't try and automate 100% of your testing. And don't do it 100% manual. Maybe go 50-50. You know, half measures, you'll get 80% of the benefit out of automation if you just automate smoke tests, for example. Very easy, very light verifications, but they're run all the time. Automation is a perfect scenario for that. It's a terrible scenario for something that's changing in design all the time, because the maintenance overhead's big. Another example is traditional test plans. This is a beef that I have with writing out a test suite that's exhaustive in terms of all the different variations.
Test overhead.
It's test overhead. Tests themselves add no value to the product. The bugs that the tests find add value. So if you need to do conformance testing for like an FDA approval or something like that, yeah, you better have your tests documented in a auditable system. And you better be able to log your test execution results that say this person said this passed on this date, so you've got an audit trail. That stuff is great for test suites and test plans where you have a bunch of test cases written down. Once you've run those once, actually, once you've created them and then run them the first time to make sure the steps are correct, you've found 90% of the bugs that that test case will ever find. And convincing management of that is sometimes a high bar, but it's a half measure. This is very effective to write test suites. The most effective part is when you're actually writing it and thinking through the feature, not the rerunning. So use it as a half measure. Do some automation with that time that you would have written a whole suite of 100, probably 4 test cases. And be willing to stand up and say, hey, I could do that, or I can find you more bugs each time by doing these other test activities, exploratory testing and so forth. Half measures are awesome. Use your mind, dedication, and perseverance. In other words, test like Batman. That's all I've got. I am perfectly open for questions and interrogation, logging if necessary.
Is XMind your site?
XMind is not my site. It's
Okay.
the name of the utility I used to create.
And you have some posts or content on there? You said we could go there and,
Yep.
okay.
So this software testing tools mind map, which, this is XMind, by the way. Welcome to XMind. At 100%, I showed you a really, really tiny picture with all sorts of stuff. So, product information, requirements. Okay, what sort of tools do you use to store requirements? TFS, doors, da-da-da. We can add all sorts of tools here and illustrate them, add links to this. And this XMind, by the way, I think is really cool. I can, if there was a TFS add-in, I could just tab, add in, and then enter. So these are pieces that connect to TFS. I don't need them, but just as an illustration. I will now delete.
Something I find is really important on tools is to try to think about financial benefit you're getting from it
cost benefit analysis buy
Yeah.
versus build.
Well, there's that side, but there's also the side where a lot of times, like you're building in inventory,
Mhm.
effectively,
Mhm.
like the
Mhm.
test cases, and so many companies now are using, offshore or consultants.
Yeah, yeah.
And what you might see in a statement of work is a deliverable that they're going to give to you. Now the question is that really working software? Right? And it's like, really, if you want to write me one test and you can guarantee me that the whole system works, that's far more valuable to me than the 50,000 tests that you just put into a repository.
I wrote you a whole bunch of test cases, and then I said they passed, but I didn't say what steps were in them, or I didn't follow them to the T, or something like that. I mean, it's very easy to get trapped into looking for deliverables rather than being able to measure software quality. What has been tested to what level of depth, clearly stating that in a way. So to me, being a software tester is not about making the software perfect. That's unrealistic. To me, it's about making it known to the product team what the current quality is. So I'm telling people, hey, this is the level of quality that we have right now. You get to decide whether that's sufficient to meet our scenarios. I have my opinions, but I'm not the product owner. My responsibility is to make sure you know how bad this thing is or how good it is by objective measures that you can look at and look back through. That's not necessarily a huge list of tests. That may be a test report that says what tests I ran, a list of defects that I found, a list of observations or issues that or questions that need to be answered or risk areas. Hey, I didn't know this feature did this under these circumstances. I have no test cases for that. This is an area in my test report that says, hey, the quality of this little part of the product is unknown. We should probably look at that, and that's a triage call. Hey, are you gonna give me time to look at that? Or is somebody else gonna go do it, or are we just gonna say, nah, nobody's gonna do that? You know? But there's a variety of tools, but absolutely. Test collateral is one of my areas that I started to go fairly deep. There's database test data, SQL scripts, .SQL files that you check in. Hey, I have a SQL script that helps me look at a particular table that I have no way of looking at from the UI. Tells me whether the queue is flowing data through as I expect. Are there aborted events that the UI would never show me? Hey, I've got a bunch of test queries in there. So I'm gonna document that stuff. It's part of a script. I might refine those queries to actually give me pass-fail results, or it may just give me the information to judge whether it's passing, failing, or I have new questions to ask. Again, to your point of test software is anything that allows you to look at things and to judge the quality or analyze things that you can't otherwise see. So I meet up with that. Other questions or ideas?
There's kind of two classes of tools too. There's the ones that, hey, I've got a need and I'm trying to solve it, and I go out and I find it, and it's useful to me, but maybe not the whole team. But then there's the other ones that are, hey, everyone needs to learn this, or this will be valuable for the whole team.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a great thing, but it then raises the overhead bar a little more. Now you have to have training, and if it gets updated, you have to retrain, and you're right that if you buy, sometimes that's easier, but everyone, particularly bug tracking tools, they're trying to be everything to everybody, and to actually, to have like just a functional JIRA system almost takes a full-time JIRA administrator just to keep it up and running and optimize it for whatever workflows you're trying to do with it.
I'm that person as well as the primary SDAT on the team. I have the TFS administrator as well.
So there's tools have overhead.
In my spare time.
Like you say, tools have overhead too, and you're in danger if you can actually overload tools with ones that aren't all that useful.
That's why I say choose your tools wisely, because they can turn around and add some overhead.
But right now, the way things are going, they just want to say everything is automated. So they just want to show to everybody.
There was a big push for that. I saw probably what, 3-5 years ago? I think
Probably
there's a
so.
better consensus now that automating everything is probably not a wise use of time. So the pendulum is swung back a fair amount towards saying, oh, maybe this heavy-duty automation infrastructure time hit, this investment in test automation isn't so good for a rapidly evolving product. For a legacy product that takes forever to make any small changes, probably good. I mean, Office, you probably want a very deep automation suite on because it's huge. It carries a very long tail in terms of compatibility, and so therefore it's a good candidate at that maturity stage.
Yeah, I think they say that you'll find, 60% of your bugs in exploratory testing if you have a,
Yes.
tell me if my number's right. I mean, that's just, it blows people away, because they think, oh, exploratory is just ad hoc, but no.
It's structured ad hoc. I mean, I wouldn't say it's too far off from ad hoc. If you have a systematic approach, James Bach has a neat little thing on satisfice.com called Explore, SBTM, session-based test management, where it's a structured approach. Here's your checklist. You start out with a charter. Hey, I'm going to test this feature focusing on the primary user scenarios. I'm going to spend 1 hour bumming around in that scope, and I'm going to keep my little notes as I'm going. In fact, I remember something about somebody logging what it was they were doing. And I'm going to just take down notes during this session. And then at the end, I'm going to go back to my test lead, and I'm going to tell them about what my findings were. And that might lead to some other charters where you say, oh, okay, now I'm going to spend 2 hours or 3 hours doing penetration testing. I'm really trying to hack it. As a hacker user, how could I break this thing? And what the specific test steps are, it's where you find weaknesses in the product. As you're exploring, you can spend more time looking at those weak areas. Usually when you find one bug, there's something else there. When you find 2 bugs, you've probably entered a minefield where there's lots of interesting things that cascade along or have, hey, here's the initial defect, here's the lack of error reporting that made it hard for me to find and expose it, and why you didn't find it in the first place, and here's the general architectural issue that this raises. So you can usually turn 1 bug into 2 or 3. If you're looking at exploratory testing in a methodical way.
What's amazing about what you're saying there is that the tool you're using there is, your mind and also a piece of paper, basically.
Exactly. Notepad or Notepad plus plus.
Or a piece of paper. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can jot it down.
Another James Whitaker, I like his approach as well to exploratory testing, where he thinks about taking tours through the system.
Exactly.
And I don't know, those are extremely lightweight. Mm-hmm. You're likely to find a lot more issues and stuff.
So here's a Batman mindset thing that I went through, and in fact, I ran into resistance from my management. We use Team Foundation Server for our test case management, and I had a whole set of features, and I wrote test cases for them. I explicitly wrote a Pry2 test case that says feature name exploration session. So, okay, here's a test case that says I need to run at least 1 exploration session. I can rerun that test any number of times, but my idea was exploratory testing is a necessary part of a diverse test plan. I want to make sure I don't forget that in the rigorous, defined traditional test case documentation. So here's how I do it. I write something down that's a test case title that says do exploratory testing at least 30 minutes, or not even put a time on there. When I pass it, I can say whatever results or store things separately. And I can merge those 2 approaches into the existing more rigorous test case management.
So, I'm kind of ignorant about exploratory testing, but isn't that what you do when you have to try to find out how am I going to test this thing? Isn't that the first thing that you do, or am I just,
you do a little bit of
do I
that.
have that wrong?
You do a little bit of that when you're writing out your tests. A lot of times people get a requirement specification and say, okay, I'm going to write my test cases to that. And you write at least top level. You don't know exactly what the steps are because the requirements aren't coded yet. As soon as the design review comes in, now you know how it's supposed to work. It's not coded yet, but now I can write some steps to those test cases. And in theory, I have a test plan that's gonna cover that feature without ever touching a line of a physical product. Where that breaks down is when it's implemented and a new feature happens to be added that you aren't told about, or an unintended feature is exposed. That's a feature, yeah, yeah.
So I guess I never actually
The
tested
exploration
something.
sessions.
Yeah, I've never tested something that nothing existed at all except requirements.
Yes.
There's always something beforehand, and so that's why I.
That's where the other camp of features come. Hey, I got this thing. I
Got
can
legacy
test it.
issues, and
Yeah.
you're asking yourself, what else could happen here?
Yep.
Yeah, there's got to be something that you're going to base it on, and there is something that exists somewhere, and even if it's not what you're building from scratch, there's something like it somewhere. So you should be able to.
Could be experience too.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have time for one more? I know.
Sure, one more, yeah.
You had made a comment, you were gonna show us how you use a compare function within plus.
Yeah.
I use that almost every day, and I just wondered how you're using it.
Yeah.
Let's have one tool.
I'll show some of my favorite tools after the meeting.
Yep.
Do you want to go ahead and we'll do this shindig, and then the folks that need to get off and do their things can do their things, and then we can have a smaller jam session for this.
Yeah, we can do that. Kind of have to wrap it up at about 8. So Zokas is next door, and the Ram is down here, depending on whether you want coffee or beer afterwards. And so we still have some time, but I do have a commitment.
All right. So I've been told to reach in here.
Oh,
That doesn't feel like my card. Oh wait, I don't have my card in here. Darn it. All right. Scott Janke. You're the winner. What's for a door prize?
Yeah, that's a cool certificate for Stella.
Yeah, awesome.
So thanks everybody for coming. There's plenty of time to mingle, another 15, 20 minutes, but then we do kind of have to move. And then if you want to carry this discussion, even bring your laptop to a local spot. 100 yards down the block is Zokas, and they're very open to having us all down there.
All right.
As always. Or if anybody wants to migrate down to U Village, the Ram is there.
I know a good place in Sammamish.
A little bit out of my way. I'm in
Let's
North
convoy.